Thank you, Sanjay. Since I moved from MERC to CRC, the common thing when we talk about competition, one great advantage being in MERC is that you don't have only government utilities, you have private utilities also. And then you realize that role of the regulator is, now since you don't have a perfect market, you don't have a market, so you have to really simulate market. So that means you have to create a level playing field for both public sector and private sector. But when I moved to CRC, what I realized is that all the public sector utilities, because since we decide only the generation tariff and the transmission tariff, we are really very pro PSUs. In fact, this is the view many of the state power energy secretaries have come and complained to me that you give anything NTPC power grid asks. And obviously, the reason I realize that if you see the composition of CRC, from where do the members come? They either come from the PSUs or they come from CA, central PSU. So naturally, that bias is there. And anyway, the cost plus regime. But at least once you have tariff regulation and all the state or any interstate power project was coming in by the private sector, then you would apply the same regulation, so you can say that at least then you are having a level playing field. But the tariff policy introduced this, that now beyond a certain date, private sector procurement will be only through competitive bidding. And 5 years window was given to public sector undertakings. So issue came is that 5-year window was expiring in January 2011, and then we undertook a study. This is an empirical study. By then we had data of the competitive bids which already had been awarded in the all over the country, intrastate and interstate. So based on that, we tried to compare, because what we realize is that if you look at the NTPC tariff, what happens is it is not only the tariff it starts with. There is always the capex. They go on having this additional capitalization, and which goes on, which gets converted into equity over the time, and that itself goes on adding. So if we do the cash stream, that's what we did, and based on that, this is available on the CRC website, and we came to the conclusion that competitive bidding seems to be the best way. And we recommended that now there was very strong resistance from NTPC, particularly that this should not be adopted, they should be given further window. And finally this was introduced. Now what should NTPC do? NTPC has gone and already signed PPAs for 39,000 megawatt. So the Association of Power Producers filed a petition saying that this is anti-competitive behavior, and under the power that we have under section 60, this is anti-competitive, we should take cognizance of that. Now based on the orders that we have passed, I'm talking because after all commission is the commission's view, it's not that my view or anything. What we realize is that as far as the NTPC's action, you cannot really today call it anti-competitive, because there are certain requirements which have to be made which are to call anti-competitive. But what we realize is that this is going to really distort the development of many of the state DISCOMs power plants. Because when we looked at how much capacity of this 39,000 will come on stream, now here I was wearing different hat. It was as the chairperson of Forum of Regulator, and I was looking at it as the chairman of FOR. I had to look after the interest of the state commission. What will happen? The state commission will ask the DISCOM, what is your power procurement plan? They say, we have signed PPA. So out of that 39,000 megawatt, what we found was hardly 12 or 13,000 megawatt capacity will come in the 12th plan, which means the DISCOMs who had signed PPAs, their power will not be available. It will be something much in the 13th plan or 14th plan, so which has no meaning. So FOR has passed a resolution and brought this to the notice of Ministry of Power and said that please warn all the states that this is what's going to happen, because since all the state DISCOMs are owned by state government, the best thing is that this message is communicated. So this is about the competition. Now, second issue came is that, as I mentioned in the morning, the tariff policy tried to do something more than what the Act had. Now, this is something, it was overreaching thing. In fact, the history of the tariff policy itself is very interesting, because there was a time when NK Singh had prepared the tariff policy, which means we had to do nothing to regulators. And that time, we went to PMO, protested as the regulators. There were 5 or 6 main state regulators and the chairman CRC then, and we said that this cannot be accepted, because if you are going to lay down tell us everything now, cross the T's and I's, dot the I's, then what is their role of the regulation? So then that was changed, but still there were certain things. By then the realization came, no, competitive bidding should be introduced. Considering that the Act has 2 sections. Section 62, which talks about how the cost plus return things to be done, and Section 63, which gives the option. And the view was that since the law provides both, then how do you really choose? Now, the appellate tribunal has given a very interesting judgment, which leaves it to the regulator, says whatever is in the consumer interest. So either route can be adopted. As far as the CRC is concerned, we went by the Section 63 has come, and we'll do that. But in that case, as we know, the problems we now have run into, and the problems have come mainly because of the case 1, where the fuel uncertainty has come. And when you have fuel uncertainty, what do you do? So in a way, we have contradicted ourselves and done that. This is what shows that the regulatory uncertainty in this context, how it works. And I'll just touch upon one important issue, is about why the unbundling was recommended for the state vertically integrated electricity board. The idea was that if you want open access and if you want to bring in competition, then you should have a transmission independent and you should unbundle. Also, idea was that there will be at least some competition if in a state there are 3 or 4 distribution companies, their performance will be compared even if they remain in government sector. Now, Maharashtra was the only state where the exercise was done by state, and state government has realized that since all the load centers are in west, so there is no way they could really carve out 2 or 3 discoms where it will be possible to allocate the PPAs, because most of the power is generated in the east, that is around the Nagpur area, the Vidarbha area. So they just decided to have one discom. So that difficulty did not arise. But most of the states didn't want this to happen, that there will be different tariff in the states, because though the idea of the tariff policy is that you will allocate the existing PPAs in such a way that there will be initially the tariff will be more or less same in all the discom. But then later on, because of the consumer mix and also because of the efficiency, those discoms which perform more efficiently, there you will find that the tariff will not increase very fast, whereas if you perform inefficiently, it will happen. But this has been completely negated, because all the states have set up one trading company, and that trading company does all the purchase. So single buyer model has been again brought back. So when we talk of the competition, now in fact Gujarat is again one of the very good examples where they had done many right things. But when it comes to this equalization of tariff, the same method is done. I don't know, the regulator also has accepted this, which is not really what the law has envisaged. So these are the few things I thought I will just mention. Thank you.